Yeah. He and I are basketball teammates.
Game 12 and
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, he was my first.
You are in charge.
Good afternoon, or good evening. I'm calling the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Diane was not able to be here tonight, so I get to sit in her place. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. The agenda is approved.
We actually, you take a vote.
Oh, sorry. I told you, first time, excuse me. A vote to approve the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? The open session minutes from October 17th, 2016, if we could have a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve the open session minutes of October 17th, 2016.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next on the agenda is the approval of executive session minutes for September 12th, September 26th, and October 17th. Who received those? I was looking through and I had not received, I couldn't find those minutes. So do we,
Just
Table
table
that?
it to November 20th.
we'll table that to November 20th? Do you take a motion or vote?
Yeah, just table is fine.
Student comments?
Okay, well,
Welcome.
first off, I'd like to introduce Maria Muhara, okay, apologize, who's a junior at NIPMUC. Maria will be taking over for now and hopefully next year, along with Emily McKay, who's also a junior. So I'd just like to extend a warm welcome. We're delighted to have you here. We're delighted to not only hear what's happening at NIPMUC, but also to get your valuable input. So welcome.
Thank you. So as of now, Term 1 report cards were actually posted to iParent today. On Veterans Day, more than 40 NIPMUC students break leaves as the home of senior citizens in Mendon-Upton. This annual leaf-breaking community service project was organized by NIPMUC Student Council with cooperation of the local senior center. On Wednesday, November 16th, boys soccer goes to the state semifinal. The team will take on the Western District champion at 7:15 p.m. at Westfield State University. On Saturday, November 19th, the NIPMUC football team heads to the state semifinals to play East Bridgewater High School at Brockton High School at 11 a.m. There will be band buses to both games. The NIPMUC Red Cross Club will be holding a blood drive in the gym this Thursday. Students 16 and older in the community are invited to participate, and obviously adults school. On October 26th, NIPMUC hosted its first 21st Century Learning Conference. The conference theme was Your Freedom, Your Future, focusing on civics and the recent presidential election. There were about 90 sessions for students to choose from, including sessions on protest music, the difference between Democrats and Republicans, financial literacy, the Electoral College, and more. Local professionals and community leaders, including Senator Moore, Representative Fatman, and Representative Moradian, ran sessions with students and teachers that day. We also had a school-wide election that day and a town meeting for the juniors, which I gladly participated in. And it was one of my favorite parts of the day. You get to understand how decisions are made and had to be a part of it. I also love the different sessions throughout the school day. They made us feel involved in what's going on around us. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Community comments?
All right.
Okay.
Everyone's still on Patriots. That's what it is.
Okay.
To you.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I have, as I do every year, and per our district policy, you have in your packet the home instruction report for 2016-17 as of last month. As you can see, as I note in the background notes, at present, we have a grand total of 23 students from the two towns receiving home instruction. That breakdown is 14 from Upton and 9 from Mendon. And as I said, and I believe I said this last year, it represents a downward trend. You know, to put things in perspective, just 2 short school years ago, we had 45 students in total receiving home instruction. We generally find a lot of times the entrance point back into the school district is usually at middle school or at the high school being the greatest time that home instruction students come back. But as you can see, the change from last year, you've got both inward and outward migration, but one of the biggest changes was a family from Upton that had 5 students moving out of state. So any questions on that data? As you can see, everybody's home instruction plan has been approved with the exception of 1 student. And I anticipate getting that very shortly. Okay. The second piece, I wish I had some more tangible plans to share with you, but just as an update with regard to the NIPMUC Athletic Facility Upgrade Committee. Our next meeting, we were supposed to meet last week, but because of the success of the teams, as Maria just noted, we had to postpone the meeting so that we will be meeting this coming Thursday at 7 o'clock in the gathering room. At that meeting, we anticipate having updated plans from Gale Associates of what 2 new turf athletic fields would look like, some actual architectural renderings in the place of where the existing soccer and football field is and where the back lacrosse field is, along with the new cost estimate. So again, that's this coming Thursday at 7 o'clock. As soon as I get those renderings and cost estimates, which I anticipate getting them tomorrow morning, I'll forward them to the committee. Okay. I've also put in your packet the enrollment projections from NESDEC, which we typically receive this time of the year. And it gets into, I think there's at least 15 years of historical data. And then what they do is they project out what our enrollment is going to be upwards of 7 years from the future. Obviously, looking at the next 2 or 3 years should be the most accurate because they're actually using live birth data from the 2 communities. And they've actually been fairly accurate. I think their enrollment projection a year ago at this time was in actuality only off by 7 students. So that's not too bad. They are projecting for next school year that continued downward slope and projecting 17 fewer students for next year. And ironically, as I know, there is a spike in children born in 11 versus children born in 2012. Between the 2 communities, there were 17 more babies born in Upton and Mendon from 11 to 12. So we're anticipating probably keeping Kindergarten status quo. Our kindergarten numbers are very reasonable this year. Across the board, they're in the ballpark of about 16 or 17 students per class. So probably maintain that. But probably the 17, the loss will probably be most noticeable at both the high school and at the middle school, spread out for migration issues. So we'll keep a close eye on this, and we will use it as we progress through the FY18 budget process. Any questions on any of the enrollment data? Okay, and then last but not least, you have in your packet the year-to-date expenditure report for FY17. I think for this point in the school year, we're approximately a quarter through the school year and probably about a third through the fiscal year. Our expenditures are essentially where we would expect them to be. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight in particular, Jeff?
No, still too early to start highlighting things. Once we get into the winter and we have snow removal and that kind of stuff, that's when we start to have concerns. We've had some building maintenance issues that we've had to address that I don't think have been super expensive, but we've had a lot of them. When the heat kicked on, we had some issues with the heat here. We've had some fields and ground. We talked about this last time. We've had some grounds issues, not just the athletic fields, but just the grounds in general that we've been trying to address. So I think we're spending a little bit more than we had budgeted in those areas, and we'll have to hopefully compensate for that as we get through the rest of the year. But we should be fine. I mean, I'm okay with everything right now.
Is it one particular school?
This one. We had to do some work on the playground. We had some curbs. We had some places where kids were just tripping that we had to bring in some fill. We had a couple of concrete pads we had to put by the entrance to the daycare center and the before-after school program because they were collapsing. That kind of stuff. We had some curbs at Memorial School we had to repair. It's just the sites are old, especially this site. And, if you want to keep them up, there's work involved.
When do we expect the solar panels and the electricity component to kick in?
So they actually called me today. They have to find a day where they can shut the power off at this building completely. So we had originally hoped to do it the day after Thanksgiving. Turns out National Grid doesn't work the day after Thanksgiving, but they do work Sundays. So we're trying to find a Sunday in the next 4 weeks where they can come and do that. They have to do some work in the electric room. Honestly, I'd say we're probably still looking at January before they're operational. I mean, they're still connecting things up. They've got to get the stuff inside. We've got to get everything set up with National Grid. Then they have to come out and test it, and then you have to wait for National Grid to come and say, okay, you're good to go. The one in Dayton is running and is actually doing fairly well, and we've been realizing some decent savings from that.
That's good to hear.
And the lights, I think our electricity usage is down. I think that's great. All that stuff I think is going to help us in the long run. In the short run, it's kind of frustrating to look at them and not know that they're not producing yet. But they do keep our cars covered during the day, so.
Not as much rain.
Okay. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is administrators' comments. It's going to be
That's me.
Mr. Cummins.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the chance to be here tonight to talk a little bit about our AP data and our SAT data. As I get started, I'll just start by saying how glad I am to have Maria joining this group and being the voice of NIPMUC. Maria is literally a voice at NIPMUC back at school, in that she's one of the kids who reads the morning announcements every day and starts our day on an informative and positive note. And she's been a great student and leader in our school. I know that she's going to do a great job in this role, and you'll get to know Emily McKay as well. Emily's another great student leader, and they're going to partner up and do a great job. So wonderful job tonight, and glad to have you representing our school. Glad to be able to share some information about AP and SAT data. I've been coming for 6 years to talk about these two metrics, and we have more good news to share. So it's exciting to be able to share the good work that our kids and our teachers are doing. When I talk about AP in particular, I'm looking at two metrics to measure how successful our program is, and that is growth and achievement. And so we want to see our program grow, more classes for kids, more kids taking courses, more opportunity for them to find an interest and a passion. But on top of that, we want to see them do better as well. We don't want just more courses. We want to see higher achievement as well. And the theme, the song I've been singing, that I can continue to sing tonight, is that our kids and our teachers are knocking the ball out of the park. They're doing a phenomenal job. And it's exciting to be able to share the good work that they're doing tonight. So I have an infographic prepared. I figure it's a little more interesting than a typical PowerPoint that I put together. So I'll walk you through some of the highlights as we talk about growth and achievement in AP, and then a review of where we're at with our advanced placement data. So, I talk about growth and achievement, and these are the first three numbers that we talk about. We're looking at the success of the program. We have 155 AP students, which equals more than half of our juniors and seniors who have the opportunity now, who are taking advantage of the opportunity to take an AP course. AP, if you remember, is a college-level course that gets offered during high school. So they are audit-approved courses by the College Board. Essentially, what it assures our kids is that they're getting college-level curriculum, moves at an accelerated pace, it has higher expectations. But when they accomplish that course and they get either a 3, 4, or 5 on a test at the end of the course, they could earn college credit. And, I reference this all the time. When I was in high school, it was 5 to 10% of kids who were taking AP courses. It was the equivalent in high school of a gifted and talented program. It had a sense of elitism about it. And that has completely changed at NIPMUC. And our kids and teachers deserve a lot of credit for that. Like I said, 155 kids is more than half of our juniors and seniors taking AP courses. Out of the class of 2016, 66% of those kids took an AP course while they were in the halls of NIPMUC. So that's important because 90% of those kids go through a 2 or 4 year college. If in September of 16, they were walking onto a college campus, when they're with us in June of 16, they should leave with the confidence and the preparation to be able to do well in those college courses they're going to take. And you can see we've administered 311 exams, and 77% of our kids get qualifying scores. So over 5 years, that percentage is up 2 points. So when I started in my role as a principal, my last year as an AP, we offered 7 AP courses, and we're now up to 19 classes that kids can take during the years of NIPMUC. That speaks to the high expectations in the building. They want these rigorous, challenging classes, and they're stepping up to the challenge. So it's exciting to be able to say we've more than doubled our program, more than double the number of kids who are taking tests, and achievement has gone up. So I really do stress this point that we're redefining what it means to be a high achiever. It's no longer the 5 to 10%. All of our kids have this opportunity to consider themselves high achievers. When you break it down at the course by course level, you can see exactly where their passions are and how they are hitting the ball out of the park. AP Bio, 16 out of 17 qualifying scores. You can see the overall average of a 3.88. Reminder that 3 is the baseline qualifying score. So if you get a 1 or a 2, that would not qualify for college credit, but a 3, 4, or 5 could qualify. I ran into a college freshman, a NIPMUC graduate from 2016, who said to me, she loves UMass Amherst, she's having a blast, and she's officially a sophomore. And so I love to hear that you walk through the door and you're saving your parents some money and you're walking in not having to take the prerequisites. But what I love even more is the fact that the AP experience, I think, has created, has been an important part of the academic culture at NIPMUC, where the kids go through the program and they gain the confidence, they gain the skills, and when they walk onto campus, they feel ready. I'm going to go back up to that quote that I had at the very beginning. They feel challenged, they get to choose something they're interested in. And so as much as I'm going to point out the numerical data, the quantitative data, I think that qualitative data is just as important to hear what our kids are saying. In our senior exit interview, I have comment after comment like this one, in which we're talking about the experience and how it improved them. So AP language, we had more kids take that class than we had in school history before. You see AP comp science, the 3rd year running that course, we had the average score increased by a full point, which is a tremendous increase. And AP Calc BC, it was the 1st year we had offered that course. AP Calc BC is the highest level advanced placement calculus course that we could offer. And it's great for our kids because I think it's a distinguishing factor on a transcript. When you're applying to a top level competitive 4-year college or university, they want to see those most challenging courses. So average score of 3.93. And I included that little bit about the sub-score. The neat thing about the AP Calc exam is it allows you to see, because you didn't take the Calc AB, the easier, if we use air quotes, the easier AP Calculus exam, it allows you to see how you would have performed on that exam. 100% of the kids who took BC would have qualified with AB scores. We had about 40 kids who took AP Calc last year. From a few years ago, that number was 12 or 13. We were scrounging and fighting to keep the enrollment, and now it's growing and getting bigger and better every year. Same with the English numbers. You can see them growing and getting bigger and better. Get back my presentation here. Another quote up top talks about not only the challenge and the choice, but the added responsibility and the work ethic that's necessary in order to be successful in an AP course. You see that our kids are doing wonderfully here as well. AP Euro last year, I walked into the meeting, this meeting that we held at NIPMUC, and I said that was an area that we needed to improve. It was one of our top 3 areas for improvement. We had an increase of 1.1. So huge increase. Kudos to Dan McIsaac and his work with that course. We have AP Microeconomics. It was the first year we offered that course. It was our most popular AP course with 42 tests given. And Rob Messick guided those kids to an overall average of 3.5, a 0.5 increase over macro from the year before. These are 2 brand new courses for us, and kids are talking about how that course stood out to them as something that they feel like everybody should have. Everybody should understand economics the way that they do. You see continued strong performance in AP Spanish language. AP Statistics continues to cast a huge net and bring in a large number, 2 sections worth of kids. So now we're looking in our math department at AP Calc, AB, BC, Statistics, Computer Science. There's a lot of opportunity for kids to find the class that best interests them and meets their needs, and they're doing great with it. AP US History was another area that we highlighted as an area for improvement. And through the guidance of Chrissy Manzella, 0.63 improvement overall, and number of qualifying scores is way, way up. Our area that we want to focus on this year is AP Physics 1. Still an area, I talked about that as one of our top 3 needs last year. We haven't made the growth that we'd like to, but it's a focus area. We've made some changes in curriculum and staffing, and we're looking to see some growth with that this year. You can see it, as you would expect. I could go through and tell you the story behind each of the teachers and the group of kids in all of these classes, but you don't have all night for that. But I can tell you what's consistent is that our teachers are working together. They're learning from a network that's beyond NIPMUC now, especially through the Mass Insight Education Partnership. So they're attending the week-long training in the summer. They're going to 2 days of training in October. They're coming with their kids to Saturday sessions, getting the extra study sessions in there. And it's paying off. You see it where you have 55 AP scholars this year. So 29 of those scholars, that means that those are kids who averaged a 3 and scored at least 3 qualifying tests. The 13 scholars with honors means they averaged a 3.25 and had at least 4 qualifying exams. And the 13 with distinction is averaging a 3.5 and having at least 5 qualifying exams. So those numbers are drastically increasing, and it speaks to, again, growth and achievement. The number of offerings that we have increases. You've got kids like Maria, who's taking 4 AP courses this year as a junior, who's coming, by the time that she's a senior, will have a legitimate chance of getting that AP scholar with distinction. Not only because she's bright and driven, but because the courses are there that allow her to choose the classes that are most interesting to her. So I'm excited about the pattern and the trends. I want to say too, though, while we're talking about achievement and I'm highlighting the great qualifying scores, I also truly believe that there is great power in getting a 2 on this test and not getting a qualifying score. And I'm proud of the kids who took the test and the teachers who worked with these kids who didn't get the qualifying score, but spent a year in the class with like-minded peers, taking on the most rigorous challenge they could in order to get ready for life beyond high school. The data is out there that speaks to the fact that when kids take these most challenging classes in high school, even if they get a 2, they have a better persistence rate in college. They're going to matriculate at a higher rate than their peers because they've taken the challenge, they've learned the study skills, and they're working to better themselves. So, I taught growth and achievement, but I'm happy with 2s for some students, where it's about the effort and the experience. It's not necessarily about getting the college credit. That's a brief overview of AP. SAT, I can point out too that continue to head in the right direction here. Our scores across the board are above the Mass average. I could have put the global average up, but Massachusetts is always better than the global average. I thought this was a better metric for you. If you look compared to last year, each of these has slight drop-offs from last year's numbers. For instance, reading I know was in at 530 last year and at 529 now, but overall pretty consistent. What's interesting is that if you take the super scores for our kids, so super score means the best the best SAT score that they got. And that's what a college or university is going to look at, not the aggregate, but their best score. Our super scores as a school went up on average with 542, 525, and 555. So even though we dropped a little bit here by single digits in some of the reading, writing, and math scores for the aggregate, our super scores are going up.
Those are the mean of all the tests taken,
Yeah,
correct?
those are the mean of all the tests taken, exactly. So, I'm very lucky, proud principal to be here and talk about what's going on in our school. I was at the National Consortium of Secondary STEM Schools, it's a mouthful. I was at their national conference presenting about STEM programming last week. And one of the things we talked about as a pathway to building STEM programming is creating a culture of high expectations. And of all the information we shared, it was the AP results and the student achievement numbers that grabbed people's attention. They wanted to say, how did you grow it? How did you make your program expand and yet still see achievement go up? And the first things out of my mouth, you can't have my faculty. We have a phenomenal group of teachers and you can't have them. But there's beyond that, it's not just having talented people, it's having people who put in the hours, the commitment, the Saturdays, the weekends, the summer weeks. And then having kids who are up to the challenge, kids like Maria who are gonna say, I'm gonna give it my all, I'm gonna work hard, it means late hours, it means weekends, it means using my vacation wisely. And if you build it, they will come. You see the results. So I'm really proud and lucky and excited to be able to share these results tonight.
I just have a question. Did the SAT test change just a little bit from last year to this year?
Yes, it did.
Or
And
maybe
so
significantly, did that impact, or did the change possibly?
the
impact
scores are
your
normed
scores?
out, so we've been assured that the score norm doesn't change. It's a consistent metric from one year to the next. I had a conversation with someone from the College Board and they said, give me your 30-second explanation of what your changes were all about. And what he explained to me is he sort of looked at the SAT changes to debunk the myth of the SAT as an IQ test. It's more coming in line with an ACT test, which has a lot of subject matter knowledge and a lot of sort of the common core elements, not just what you know, but how you use it. But the numbers are very consistent from one year to the next. Sure. Take any questions?
So what's standing in the way of us doing better?
Uh,
I mean, don't get me wrong, we're doing great.
Sure.
I think it's amazing what you've done. I think it's amazing where we've gotten to. But I guess the question I would ask is, as you look forward into the future, what stands in the way of continuing that achievement?
Yeah, that's great.
So, things?
Let's start with growth. Growth is looking at classes that kids want. And we have 2 new ones on the books this year. So next year I'll be reporting back on AP Psych and AP Chem, 2 new classes for us. First year as an AP course is going to be tough. Maybe see a little dip in numbers, maybe, but we've got teachers working super hard on that. When it comes to achievement, I'm a huge believer in 2 things: best practice and building your network of support. I don't think that we can remain insular as a school. And one of the things that's worked with us in Mass Insight Education is connecting with other AP teachers in Massachusetts and across the globe. Experts who, for instance, Dan McIsaac, I was in his room the other day, and they were doing this awesome project on the Reformation, and they were doing Reformation Monopoly. It was fun, it was engaging, and I was listening to these conversations kids were having, going, Dan, where did you come up with this project? And he talked about how he developed a network at an AP conference, has a shared Google folder that he contributes to and borrows from, of everyone's best assignments. When you are tapping into a network of professionals who have best practice, and you're borrowing and making it your own and using it with your kids, the sky's the limit. And that takes a growth mindset, and it takes a willingness not to have your door shut, but to share and accept ideas from other people. And I think that's one of the characteristics of our faculty. I used this term at the beginning of the year that I had the sense of, there's a real sense of competitive collaboration in our teachers. And I mean that in the best of way, not competitive like they're trying to outdo each other. Competitive in the sense that they're always looking to get better. And when they get better, the person next door to them gets better. So, from a teacher standpoint, it's to take advantage of the PD. From a leadership standpoint, it's to get out of the way of these talented teachers and allow them to connect with other professionals.
Great.
As a student who's taking AP Psychology, and that's a new class that's being offered this year, I can definitely guarantee with Mr. Paris, he has a great program. All students are going to be getting 4s and 5s. I can 100% guarantee that. He's doing a great job with us. His teaching methods are great.
I did that in a minute.
He lets us understand everything.
I
Goes
do.
through everything 5 times if he has to.
I have to add, I think what John and the staff have done is nothing short of remarkable. Let's put some numbers in perspective. Speaking of enrollment, I know last year you had exactly 609 students, John. So do some quick math, 155. That's over 1 in 4 kids in the entire school was accessing an AP course. That is remarkable. For a senior class that last year, what did we graduate? About 180 or so, John?
Yeah.
Okay. In the 170s, the fact that you had over 40 kids accessing either AP Calc, AB, or BC is remarkable. Okay, I'm saying this as a really proud superintendent, but also as a former high school teacher and a high school principal. Unfortunately, most high schools here in the Commonwealth, but across the nation, they put up a lot of barriers to kids taking AP courses. Okay, where I formerly was principal, I'll say publicly, I used to do battle with my math department chair because she put up all types of roadblocks so that only the absolute creme de la creme, only the absolute 20 highest kids, and we're talking like out of 350, 400 kids, would be able to access AP Calc for the simple reason they wanted the scores to be really, really high. I think it's remarkable what NIPMUC has done. Essentially, John uses, the fields of dreams. If they build it, they will come. I like the old expression, a high tide raises all boats. If you have high expectations across the board, all kids benefit. To kind of dovetail on what John said, even the kids that are getting 1s and 2s, yeah, we want them to get a qualifying score of 3 or higher, but the fact that they are in a rigorous academic environment really sets them up nicely for college and beyond. So kudos, it's a real commendable job.
Thank you very much.
It's pretty exciting information to share. The next item on our agenda is the subcommittee updates. And the policy subcommittee met on October 24th to revise the JICH policy and the IHAMB policy, which have to do with tobacco, alcohol, tobacco, and drug use by students, prohibiting that. We took the language from the Mass Association School Committee policies and revised our NIPMUC policy, or Mendon-Upton policies, to align with the new law for the opiate law, so that we would be in compliance there. This is the first read of the policy, so if you have any questions on that.
Yeah, essentially the net of this is some really minor changes from our existing policies. The law requires that every school district, A, have the policies, which we did have, B, should directly communicate them to parents, and C, to ensure that they're directly linked to your district website. So they're already on the district website. Once we go through the second reading and approval on November 28th, we'll be sure to email them to all parents with an explanation.
The next item on the agenda is the Golden Apple.
Yeah, just an update. We got that up and running last year, and the agreement is we would do 2 annual awardings, one in January, one in June. So what we typically will do is a full month-long period for a call for nominations. So the same nomination form that was used last year will be kept in place, and it'll be emailed out tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to all of our parents. It'll also be on our district website and on our social media sites. And the intent is to run that through December 16th. And with the game plan that the subcommittee will be meeting probably right after the holidays, and to present the award at the meeting of January 23rd.
On to old business. We need to give notice.
Yes. So back in the executive session that we had on September 26th, the committee approved a new extension of the superintendent's contract. And we took a vote on that, and it was agreed that we would extend the contract. I can give a couple of details around that, because I think they're important to understand the context of it. First off, it should be noted that when you look at the surrounding communities today, besides the fact that I think Joe is currently, his compensation structure is in the lower tier of that community today, and I think we all agree, and the parents, that we'd like to see Joe sticking around for a while. We did approach Joe towards the end of the summer and asked if he would be open to extending his contract. So through the course of August and September, we negotiated an extension. That extension is essentially 6 years. So starting as of the beginning of July 1, 2016, running through the end of June 2022. I think those, from a compensation perspective, just to understand the basis, since the start, Joe's salary was there. When we first started, it was at 145, and has been increased to 152.6. In the new contract, that's the course of him actually receiving no adjustments or increases for 2 out of the last 5 years. Which I would say is that three out of the last 5 years. And then with 2 other adjustments that have been noted in there, one from 145 to 150, and then last year going from 150 to 152. Putting him into the range of where we're going now. We've done the analysis on the other superintendents in the area. We have raised his base, just to give you the high level details there. We have raised his base salary to 160 for FY17, and with a commitment of a 2% cost of living adjustment for FY18, and then FY19 and beyond will be negotiated in the previous fiscal year, just like we currently have today in the contract that's there. What else people would like to know? Or other items we need to cover? Beyond that, we're appreciative of it because it gives us, we've already passed a half a year almost, so it gives us another 5.5 years of Joe being here. Obviously, there are stipulations in the contract that, based on performance and based on the collective, I'll call it ability of the school to move forward to do things, we'll continue on with this contract. So if there are questions or items, we're happy to answer them. But I think we've talked about all that in executive session. So the key was to make notice of it so that people understood that a vote was taken and that the contract was extended and the new superintendent contract has been put in place. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very appreciative and look forward to many more years of work ahead.
Absolutely.
And we had a few members of our school committee who had an opportunity to attend the joint conference. Should I get some highlights on that, anyone?
Sure. Okay, so as always a good time on the Cape. Some of the sessions that I attended, the overall theme of the conference was around social and emotional learning, and I believe Dorothy did many sessions in there, so I won't take up space on that topic because I have a feeling she had some things to add. But some of the sessions that I went to that I found particularly interesting were one on advocacy and media strategies, which talked about some of the best practices for school committees and districts using social media, especially in terms of educating and informing parents in a coherent and concise way, staying on message, in different ways to disseminate information clearly in today's age of social media and buzzwords and things. One of the general sessions I attended had to do with next generation MCAS, which is predicted to be administered in the spring of 2008. MCAS 2.0, as they're calling it, sounds an awful lot like MCAS original, and some park items. So there was a review of the ELA math standards by DESE administration and other interesting parties. Also discussion of a new social science standards and assessment. And I believe that DESE's bringing the suggested standards to the November board meeting and opening for public comment in January with a final vote in the spring of 2017. They're looking towards all districts using computerized testing for the spring of 2019, which raised some concerns, especially in Western Mass, where the infrastructure is not up to standard and they don't, it's kind of nebulous as to whether they will be up to standard then. So stay tuned for more on that. And let's see, finally, I went to the District 4 meeting. Ellen Holmes is the chair, and they basically gave an overview of the programs and the meetings that they've held in the past year. They're typically held on Saturdays. One specifically on the opiate crisis was widely attended in Worcester earlier this year. And they're soliciting program ideas for some of the upcoming spring sessions that they have planned. And I believe there was some great interest in discussing school vacation times and possibly, what districts are thinking about merging the February and April vacations or possibly changing school calendars. But there is kind of a general feeling that if many of us in the district or in the division, we need to do it as a team if we choose to do it. So discussion has to take place and obviously input. So that was one topic that seemed to be interesting. And Ellen does welcome comments or ideas. So if you need her email, it's both available at MASC, or you may contact me directly. You may have gotten an update from her as well in your MASC account. And then it just wouldn't be a MASC conference without parliamentary procedures. So I saved the best for last. That's always my favorite. So it's always good to be refreshed on those kinds of things as well. So as always, very edifying, very interesting and current, and I appreciate the district allowing me to attend.
And I would like to thank the district for allowing me to attend. It was the first conference that I attended, and it was very interesting. I attended 2 general parliamentary type sessions, and then one of the conferences that I attended was on alternative assessment, which I found very interesting in the way that they presented the information on how some teachers are currently working with students on different types of assessments where, say for example, in a math class, if a student is given a test, instead of the test just being graded, what will happen is the teacher will go through and put a red dot by the ones that are wrong, and then the test is given back to the student, and the student is asked to find where they made their mistake instead of it just being scored and handed back. So once the student does or doesn't find the score, the mistake that they made, then at that point, then the teacher will grade it. So I thought it was quite interesting, how there are different processes that they're using. Overall, it was a very interesting conference, and I think in future, a lot more things to bring up and discuss here at the school committee meetings that we have related to curriculum and instruction and assessment. New business?
Okay. The first thing that we have under new business is a proposal that we've recently received to do a formal evaluation of our one-to-one learning program. And I'm going to turn things over to Dave Quinn, who's done a lot of work to date on this. But there's a couple things that I just want to impress before Dave starts talking about this specific proposal. You know, we talk a lot about the district's vision. What are we all about? What are we moving towards? And it's really three things. It's excellence, it's innovation, and continuous improvement. And if you really think about the cycle of continuous improvement, 4 real simple steps. You plan something, you implement it. After you implement it, you evaluate it. Then you take that feedback that you get from the evaluation and you start the cycle over again. I think for such a major initiative that we've had over the last 5 years, we're long overdue for really a formal, rigorous, third-party outside evaluation of this program. I think we've done a lot of internal evaluations, and I think we've done a lot of tweaks and a lot of things on the fly, but we're looking to do something that's comprehensive across the board to really improve it. Second piece that I want to put out there is this whole notion that sometimes I think we as an administrative team and we as educators take for granted, but this whole idea of the SAMR model, and I think Dave will be referring to it, but it's a model of technology integration that's really come to the fore over the last 5 years or so. That kind of speaks to how do we want teachers to use technology? How do we want our students to use technology in a smart and purposeful way? And if you really think about it, and maybe from your experience as a student, in your case, Maria, or your experience as parents, you could use technology in a really basic way, kind of the bottom of this substitution, where instead of having a worksheet, you're using an iPad that has a PDF on it, okay, with some type of functionality, okay? And then you go up the scale up towards modification and redefinition, where you're using technology in a way that makes the assessment completely new and able to get at higher order thinking because you're using the technology, okay? As I say, half seriously, half facetiously, we want to be above the Mason-Dixon line. We want to be at modification and redefinition, because that's really where we're getting the maximum bang for our buck in this investment in our one-to-one program. So I bring all that to the fore because I think it's important to realize that a researcher and also an educator by the name of Dr. Ruben Puntadera is kind of the father of this model. And if you read the proposal very carefully, he would be involved with the team from Boston College who would actually be doing the 6-month study here within the district. So I think that's a significant piece that has us very excited about some of the possible outcomes. So with that said, I'm going to kick it to you, Dave, to kind of talk a little bit about this proposal and then answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. Very pleased to share this exciting proposal with you this evening. I was just thinking about John's presentation, talking about all of the ways that we're able to capture how our students are doing on traditional assessments that show that we're getting them prepared for college and career readiness. And I was fortunate enough to go to the EdTech Teacher Summit last Friday, and I was listening to Jamie Cassup, who is the Chief Education Evangelist for Google. And the key word that came out of his presentation was collaboration. How everything in the future is going to be teams working on ill-defined problems that are really going to move this country forward. And while we're doing a great job in capturing the traditional assessments, what we need to try to move towards now is how are we doing in terms of preparing our students to be able to communicate across multiple media? How are we teaching them to collaborate in teams? And also, how are we as a district innovating in not only implementing best practices, but creating best practices. And I think this proposal that we have before you today will help us to measure where we are, not only in terms of where we wanted to be when we started off in this program, but also comparing us to where we are compared to other one-to-one districts in the state and across the globe. Just lost contact for a second. So we received 3 proposals. The proposal teams come from a national group coming from places like New Jersey, Colorado. They have decades worth of experience, the teams that were put together. The bidders included the author of the 2016 National Education Technology Plan, the developer of the SAMR model, Dr. Quintadora, a program evaluator for the Harvard MIT edX massive open online courses, and a former state level ISTE board president. So we're talking about people who are really experienced, and we're very fortunate to have a very competitive pool of program proposals. The one that we decided to go with was the Boston College proposal. The first thing that jumped out to us was the outstanding experience. Dr. Bebel, who's the lead architect of this proposal, has done several one-to-one program evaluations in several districts across the country, including NATIC in 2014, which he's best known for. He has a good relationship with Dr. Quintadora, and in our conversations, when we were talking about how we were using a SAMR model here in Mendon-Upton, Dr. Bebel said that he would be able to encourage Dr. Quintadora to join us, and he was able to secure him as part of the proposal. The other researcher on this proposal is Dr. Stephen Stempler of Wesleyan. He is a highly respected psychometrician who will help develop some of the survey items and some of the focus group questions to help capture how we're doing in the areas of communication, collaboration, and innovation. What stood out about this proposal, in addition to the outstanding experience, is that this proposal will have multiple on-site visits. This is an extended program. Some of the other programs were much shorter in duration, so I think we're going to get a comprehensive look over a long period of time of how we're doing. We're not just getting a snapshot, it's going to be more of a panoramic view. The proposal clearly demonstrates that it understands our communicate, collaborate, and innovate initiative. They are designing the proposal around those key concepts. They're also have the ability to provide concrete recommendations for how we move forward, not only in our 3 big goals, but also in terms of how do we get over that Mason-Dixon line into SAMR. So having Dr. Quintadora here to be able to, as the developer and the founder of the SAMR model, to have him be able to, give us constructive feedback on how to improve our practice, I think is a really huge bonus of this proposal. There's also the opportunities for further collaboration and partnerships. Dr. Bebel has talked about some of the work that he's done with international schools over in Europe and India, and he was interested in having us participate in that. I know that global learning is a huge focus of this district. This is Mr. At Maskew, Dr. Burchett talked about how the district is really trying to increase opportunities for global learning. What we're doing on our own right now is rather incredible from the places and other districts I've visited. But to really get that outside lens of what other schools are doing, I think would be really critical. And then finally, when it came down to it, this was the best value in terms of experience, number of touch points, evaluations, and future directions. So the proposal highlights. There will be between 80 and 100 observations, about 30 minutes in length each. There's approximately 42 hours of in the classroom observations being conducted by trained researchers. We will also be conducting confidential short surveys for teachers and students focused on technology use for communication, collaboration, and innovation. We're also going to be doing a series of focus groups over the course of the month, looking at the perspective of students, teachers, parents, and administrators to really triangulate the data. So do the observations Do they match up with the survey data? And when we can really try to probe, or the researchers really try to probe in to make sure that what we're seeing in the classroom, what we're hearing in the survey is really the experience of the participant. We will get a full report and recommendations presented to the school committee by Dr. Bebel and Dr. Pentadora. They will be here in person to present it, so it's not just a handoff and go. They are invested in our district, so you won't be surprised to see them, in the hallways. And then the final piece, which I think is really important in terms of a long-term investment, we will be receiving access to the tools that they use to evaluate our progress, so that way we can continue down the road to measure where we are, where we want to go, and have indicators and benchmarks for future growth. So I think this is a long-term investment in terms of evaluation, not just a one-time proposal. So the timeline, so for the remainder of the 2016, if the vote is to approve, I will reach out to the Boston College team and to coordinate logistics. They will set our overhead rate at 5%, and this is an interesting piece of higher ed inside baseball. The typical overhead rate for higher ed is about 56%. So when a researcher gets a grant, the university usually takes 56% right off the top to fund, the infrastructure, building, network, so on and so forth. They were willing to cut that down to a 5% rate, which I think is pretty significant, and it makes it affordable for districts. And then Boston College will apply for and receive IRB approval. So this is going to be a formal research and ethical process, and I've agreed to help with the facilitation of collecting all that paperwork from our parents and our teachers and our students. In January 17, we'll have a kickoff meeting and a presentation to the school committee about where we're heading and what the next couple months will look like. We'll start collecting the parent signatures. We'll put the final tweaks on what kind of questions we'll have and what kind of implementation it's going to look like, set the schedule for the observations. And then the team will do a quick needs assessment to work with our school level or district level staff to see where we are currently and where the evaluation might need to change. February, March, and April will be the data collection. So in February, they'll have the leadership, teacher, and student focus groups. They'll begin the site visits to start collecting the observation data. That will continue through March and then in April as well. And then we'll also be having the survey collections in April after they've collected some initial baseline data in the previous 2 months. In May of 2017, the leadership team will be interviewed as the final kind of piece to pull all the data together. The site visits will wrap up, and then in June of 2017, the research team will come back to a school committee meeting of your choice to present the program and provide further recommendations for the district moving forward. So this is just a breakdown of the budget. The Boston College direct costs are about over $18,000. The benefits, that is for staffing that's going to be provided by Boston College. So your secretary's research assistants who help contribute to the report, but may not directly participate on it. We've got a breakdown of the consulting staff will be provided, and then supporting material, travel to and from our sites around the district, focus group catering supplies, and then that 5% overhead fee. So the total cost of the package will be $34,999.
Thank you very much, Dave. I think it's important to realize that, as I talk about in the background notes, this is part of our brand new technology plan. And this is also within our action plans for 16-17, tied directly to our district strategic plan. I am fully cognizant that this is a significant expense, and that's why I've asked Dave to present about this. And I do think that this expense should be approved by the committee. As I also talk about in my background notes, This does come in as our lowest of our three proposals, and I think the most comprehensive and the most thoughtful of the three proposals. So I concur with Dave in saying that I think this is the route that we need to go. So does anybody have any specific questions that either myself or Dave could answer regarding this proposal?
I think I was just gonna, I guess I just make a comment that I know Diane's not here, but I know her and I are somewhat vocal in terms of the evaluating the program and where it is. I think we've done some stuff in the past in regards to looking at the use of technology, but I think having a full evaluation of where we are, where it's going, how it's used, how it can be improved will, I think, give us a good piece of information to be able to integrate into any roadmap we put out there. So I think it's a critical thing we need to do. And I think when you look at the proposal and the stuff that was out there and the stuff you put in your notes, I think it looks spot on. It looks like it'll be a very thorough job.
I think it's important too that we're having an outside company come in, or outside group of evaluators come in and look at it. So while we can internally look at where we are, I think it's important to have that outside perspective to see, to give us a better look at our strengths and our weaknesses in our program.
Great.
So do we
Take a motion?
make a motion?
We need a motion to approve the budget amount.
Mm-hmm.
So I make a motion to approve the $35,000 allocation for the.
Make it exactly what.
You'll make it.
No, you gotta make it exactly what's in the quote.
Give me a second to bring that one up.
$4,999.
I have it.
There's a reason behind that. It's not just like, you
Oh,
know,
absolutely. Where's the number?
34,999.
Oh, okay.
Don't round.
I make a motion to approve the allocation of the $34,999 for the evaluation of the one-to-one learning program by Boston College's Center for the Studying, Testing, Evaluation, and Public Policy.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call vote?
Do we need a roll
Do we
call?
roll
You
call?
don't need a roll call.
Okay.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Thank you.
The next on our agenda is the approval of the World Challenge trip.
Hi, everyone. I'm Courtney Leja and
Megan Brazil.
and we're teachers at NIPMUC Regional High School. And we actually took over the World Challenge program for this past trip. In July of 2016, we took 14 NIPMUC students to Belize for 2 weeks. And it was our first trip. We were a little nervous taking off for 2 weeks with no cell phones and trudging off into the wilderness, the jungle for a few days, but it was absolutely unbelievable. So when we proposed this 2 years ago, we were taking over for Julie Ahmed Jassom, who ran 6 trips of her own. So this is actually what we're proposing is the 9th World Challenge trip for NIPMUC high school students. And for those of you who don't know about the program, this travel program comes in 3 parts. There is a community service phase to the trips that we take, where we get involved in a local community project for probably about 5 to 6 days. Then our middle portion of the trip is a trek in the indigenous area, whatever that might look like, whether it's mountainous, whether it's jungle, whether it's, desert in some cases. And then the last portion of the trip is a couple of days of rest and reflection, where we get to do an activity like strictly for fun and a little bit of, tourist activity as well in the country before we come home. So when we went to Belize this past summer, our community service project, we were actually partnered with a primary school, and we and the students built a cement cafeteria patio for them, to improve their building. They're like infested with red ants, and the kids would just sit in the grass to eat their lunch. And yeah, I mean, we experienced the bugs when we were out there, and it was awful. So we built them a little cafeteria area, and then we went on a 4-day jungle hike where you carry your tent and your food and everything in your bags. And then we got to spend 2 days on an island off the coast of Belize, and we did some snorkeling before we came home. And the whole point of the trip is to foster every student's personal growth. And a lot of the responsibility for the trip when we are in country is actually put on the students. So they are expected to take leadership roles every day. We rotate who's the leader of the day. They're given a budget and all of our spending money for the entire team. And it's an itemized budget sheet that our financial student has to follow every day to make sure that we're spending our money where it should be spent, on groceries, on transportation, on housing, things like that. And actually every student in the group carries a portion of the money on them. So they learn financial responsibility, planning, leadership. They're booking our accommodations for sleeping. They're booking our transportation. The growth that you see is actually unbelievable. And one of probably the biggest challenges we ask them is, it's not mandatory, but we ask them to try to leave their cell phones at home. And we model by doing the same thing. Because when you're actually disconnected from the society that you're used to taking part in and being a part of every second of every single day, it's amazing what you can learn about what you know and what you don't know, especially in social situations as well. So we saw a lot of growth in our students with that this past trip as well. So the next trip that we're proposing is actually a brand new destination that World Challenge is now offering. So in the past 8 trips that we've run, we have stayed in Central and South America. And World Challenge now has more affordable options to actually go overseas. So last year, our trip to Belize that was approved 2 years ago for this past summer ended up costing the students $37.50 per student for the 2 weeks that we were out there. They are offering a trip to Iceland this year that is only a $600 increase from going to Belize for 2 weeks. So it would be 2 weeks in Iceland at the cost of $4,395 per student. In Iceland, our community service project, it's not specifically chosen until a couple of weeks before we travel to know where the project is at, but it's going to be around sustainable energy within the country, which I think is just really important for them because that's something they can really take home with them too. We don't see the same struggles that Belize was seeing, but this is actually something very relatable as well, I think is important. And then our hike that we're going to be doing is actually, instead of a jungle hike, a mountainous hike this time. And our rest and relaxation portion of the trip is a couple of options. The kids could either decide to do whale watching off the coast in Reykjavik Bay, or there's like natural mud baths that we can sit around in, and some touring that we can do in Reykjavik itself. So it's got a lot of promising features to the trip. And I don't know if I kind of talked a lot there. I don't know if she has anything to add.
No, we just had an amazing experience, and I felt really fortunate to be part of that last trip, and I'm excited about this trip.
Need a motion?
Quick question, is it 18? Is it 2018?
It would be July 2018. We like to give them, like by the time we get it all approved and we start marketing it, we like to give them at least 1.5 years to try to fundraise.
Question for how did the fundraising work for the last trip? Because this one is a slightly more expensive trip. What did it end up costing out of pocket per se?
So the students primarily, and this has been a trend that has happened for, ever since it started, primarily do a lot of independent fundraising. We did have one fundraiser last year that we got off the ground, which was selling sunglasses at outdoor sporting events for $5. For their donation, they got a pair of sunglasses from the World Challenge program. And honestly, the kids don't really choose to participate in the school sanctioned fundraisers. A lot of them spend their time babysitting and mowing lawns and, kind of working things from an independent angle. So most of it was privately fundraised by themselves or contributed by their families.
Would the seniors of 2018 be able to go?
I wish that were the case, but no, this would actually be open and marketed to 8th graders through junior year, because by the time 2018 rolls around, our juniors will have just been graduated. So they're eligible to go on the trip, but unfortunately not you, Maria, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's an opportunity for your brother.
Wait, you're a junior though.
Yeah. I'm
Oh, you are a junior. Actually, yeah, no, you're in.
So the seniors who graduate
Seniors
class
who graduate in
18.
2018 can attend the trip.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
We actually had a senior who did that this year. She graduated in June and she came on the trip and she was awesome, huh?
That means you can have 2 kids.
It's not saving that money. I know it's a wonderful experience for all of our students who have had the opportunity to attend in the past. Are there any other questions? Someone could make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the World Challenge trip to Reykjavik, Iceland in 2018.
Any other questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Correspondence,
There is none.
other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting?
I have one to bring up. It is our fault. I'll take the hit on this one. I'll say it's my fault. But we have scheduled tentatively a multi-board meeting for this coming Thursday, the 17th. The way things were left the last time the multi-board met, which I think was at the tail end of August, correct? Maybe the beginning of September, that we would only have 2 multi-board meetings. One would be in November and the second one would probably be April. And the mindset behind the November one would be to start talking about the budget. At this juncture, we have all the budget materials out to our principals and our department heads, but we don't have them back yet. If it's okay with the committee, I would like to send an email out to both boards of selectmen, both FinComs, ask that they defer it till December. I can say with a much better degree of confidence, probably by at least, what do you figure, Jay, December 10th or so, we'll have a much better idea of what our first pass budget is looking like.
Yeah, I'd say we'll probably do our meetings the week of the 5th to the 10th, so sometime the week of the 12th, we should have a pretty good handle on where the first pass is, at least as far as in the expenditure side. The revenue side is another story, but
Sure.
so maybe the 15th.
Would Thursday, the 15th work for people if I put that out as a tentative date?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'll do is first thing tomorrow morning, I will put out an email to all involved with the multi-board proposing December 15th. Okay? Super. Thank you.
Thank you. Future agenda items, spotlight on teaching and learning, social emotional learning for the November 28th meeting. Is there anything else?
The second reads of policies.
The second reads for the 28th as well.
Correct.
Anything? So we're ready to adjourn. The meeting is adjourned at 8:14. Oh, sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned now at 8:15.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we're being safe.
Yeah, nice job.
Right? Reykjavik sounds much less sweaty than Belize and buggy.
Oh my goodness. Sweaty, no doubt, right? Did she tell you how awful our?
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, John.
It's a life changer. It's really, I mean, without exaggerating, that is a life changer.